Hi, I'm TechDave, and today we're looking at the Lenovo ThinkPad X200. We're going to be doing some basic upgrades and attaching this mysterious device to it, which I'm sure if you've watched my other videos you probably know what I'm talking about, you know what it is. And this is going to be an ultra budget eGPU setup 2019. So we have, the X200. It's not actually in bad condition, so it's from 2008. It's actually been quite well looked after. And we've got, X200 Lenovo. It's got wireless broadband in it, which is quite cool, but it's only 3G. It's got 4 gigs of RAM, 320 gig hard drive, and as you're about to see, it boots incredibly slowly. I mean, it's not too bad for a hard drive with Windows 7, but it's not good enough for my needs at the moment. So, we're going to try and get this perfectly in time. You ready? 1, 2, 3, go. I'm just going to boot to the lock screen, see how long it takes. It's averaging about, well, I'm not going to spoil it, so we'll just see how long it takes. Seems to nothing's happening, nothing's happening. A lot of people in the audience are pissed. Quick slug of tea while we're waiting. Oh, drum roll please. We're in the lock screen. So about 48 seconds, I missed it by 2 seconds because the camera woman was in the way. But yeah, hold on. So we'll be back in a second once we're in, and I'll show you some of the actual response times of the operating system, because it's pretty bad. So it's been having this problem where it just kind of hangs on. You can't tab out, you can't do anything, you can't really do anything with it. It does have the think light, by the way, at the top there, which is always awesome. But so after we just filmed the boot time to the lock screen, we waited probably about another 45 seconds to get into the operating system, and then it's got just this kind of black screen. I don't quite know what that issue is, so if anyone has any idea, let me know, because it doesn't always do it. But just to show you, it's going to take quite a while, maybe even speed this footage up, I'm not sure, but it takes quite a while to actually get to the operating system as well. So what we had to do was basically I had to log out and re-enter my password to get it to go to this actual screen. And then I'm going to show you what else we got. So we've got it's got a SIM card in it. It says O2, but it's actually giffgaff, but they're running that. And that's about all that's interesting. But I wanted to show you just how long it takes to actually get a browser open as well on this, just to show you how sluggish and long-winded this laptop actually is. Tom.
2 hours later.
There we go. And that might be contributed to by the Wi-Fi not being that strong, and not necessarily the signal of the Wi-Fi either, but just the actual card itself. Still waiting. We're on about 30 seconds now because I've been watching the timer on the camera. And we are almost there. There we go, we finally got a website open. Right, so that just kind of explains how slow it is. I can run basic games on it, I can run like Half-Life and various other things. But I'm probably not going to show that, so I'll come back when I do start the upgrades. So here we have the X200 once again shut down now, and what we're going to do is upgrade to this and add this as well, because currently we've got 4 gigs of RAM, 320 gig hard drive. So first things first, take the battery out, and here we've got the SIM card slot. As you can see, I've got a giffgaff SIM card. That can stay in there for now. And then, so we're going to do the RAM first because that's quicker. As you can see, you've got my product key here hidden. and then we just undo these screws. Then we just put a little screwdriver just here, pop it open. Then we put in slot 1, I don't know whether you can see, this one's labelled slot 0 there, so you need one in at least that slot. And then so that's a 4 gig stick there, as you can see here, 4 gigabytes. And then the other way up, you just slide it in there, and then press it down until it clicks. That should be good to go. So that's our RAM upgraded. Just going to put the screws back in. Then we go over to here to this little drive bay here, and unscrew this. And here we go. Pop it off with that. Not quite unscrewed yet. Lefty loosey, righty tighty. Come on, there we go. And then we just remove this little tab here. Slide that motherfucker out, yo. Actually, yep. So that goes up in that way. Now I would normally screw these in, but I don't know whether this is a permanent setup, so I'm just going to leave it as it is. It doesn't have any screws with it anyway, so why not? And then on the X200 you want the data on the left, power on the right. If the device is upside down, should just slide in there nice and nice. Pop the drive cover back on, and we are upgraded. All there's left to do is put the battery back in. It should be good to go. Okay, so the next we're just going to pop, we've got a little thick hard drive caddy. It's a slightly different one from the one I used on the X230, because this Ultrabase takes a different one. Then all you do is you get your Ultrabase here, which I haven't actually mentioned, but this is what we're going to be using to retain the second drive from the original setup. And we just use a bit of force, jam it in there, make sure it sits nice and neat. Now in theory with this we should be able to, so you press power up and you press the ThinkPad edge button. So what I've done is I've just put the dock and choose temporary startup device with F12 after pressing the ThinkPad edge button. Right, so as you can see here we've got the 8 gigs of RAM all registered and working nice and nicey. If we go to start up and then boot, you can see we've got Q90 S1, that's their SSD, and then we've got the Hitachi, which is 320 gig. Now if you wanted to boot back into your original installation, you use F6 and put that there, and then save and exit. Now in theory this should boot into Windows 7, so that remains to be seen though. And then the good thing about this is that when the dock isn't present with the Windows 7 install, there we go, and then when the dock isn't present it will auto boot into Windows 10, which you will have installed on the SSD. So you can do a dual boot using the, if you come around the side here, so this hard drive has got the Windows 7 operating system on it, and then in the actual drive bay of the device here we've got our SSD, which what I've done is I've pre-installed Windows 10. The SSD was in another device basically, so it already had Windows 10 on it. It's not activated at the moment, but I'm going to get a license key for it at some point. But the whole point is that in the BIOS you can switch between the two operating systems, and also we're going to then test the boot time of the SSD by comparison. So here we have the boot time from the SSD. I went into the BIOS and switched back the boot order, which is just basically the reverse of what I did in the previous bit of footage, and then it should boot from the SSD now. Bang. So we're down from 48 seconds to 23 seconds, and actually the longer I use this operating system, the more likely that speed is to decrease. So just to show the difference in boot time of the browser, we'll just open Google Chrome, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, bang. Job's good, and it is loaded now. There we go. So that was like 10 seconds instead of about a minute, which you may or may not see in the footage, but there we go. And then we're just going to look at the system specs as well now. So we've got the system here. So Core 2 Duo, 2.26 GHz, 8 gigs of RAM, blah 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 blah. I don't need to see the device ID. And then the only thing that I had trouble with this in the Windows 10 install was that I couldn't get the mobile broadband to work in Windows 10 because it only has Windows 7 drivers. PCI serial port and simple communications controller, don't actually know what they are, so I don't know whether it matters, but it hasn't seemed to impede anything I wanted to do. But everything else just auto-installed and updated, even the display adapter, which I gathered until I did this that this particular GPU, mobile GPU, didn't actually work on Windows 10, and apparently it does, so that's quite exciting. Hello, so we've got here a 350 watt power supply, which I ripped out of an old, was it Dell Dimension, I think it was. It was a Pentium 4 machine anyway, and it seems to run perfectly stably. And then here we've got the ASUS 560 Ti, and then I've run that out of VGA into this monitor here. So if you come right here, and then the express card port is just here on the left, as it is with most models. And you just put that in there, and then hopefully it should boot fine. Now, one of the reason I've got the screen back here is actually for cooling, because I intend to do another episode on this laptop where I redo all the thermal paste and clear the fans out and everything, because it runs really hot at the moment. It's cooler with Windows 10, but it still runs pretty damn hot. So one of the foibles of this system is that when you've got the eGPU set up, this screen doesn't work at all, whereas with the X230 over there and the T430S you still get the internal screen, but with this one you don't. So just bear that in mind, and you should see, hopefully, if I fitted this correctly. Let's just double check. eGPU fires up, fans are spinning, and there we go, we're in business. Also, this is from my dual set, the Lenovo mouse and keyboard from the previous video, but I also happen to have a ThinkPad one specifically, which is almost identical, but it just says ThinkPad instead of Lenovo. I've just got that plugged into the dock. I'm skipping disk check because I know it's fine, it's just because I changed over the hard drive. Okay, groovy. And then when we're in, there we go, I will just type in my password and then I'll be back. So we're just doing some basic game testing, starting with my favourite benchmark, Tomb Raider, and we're going to start on low and see if we can bump it up from there because of the Core 2 Duo. But I know it does work with this graphics card, so let's see what happens. I'm going to go into the start benchmark. We'll see what kind of frames per second we get in this game. But first of all, it opens, so that's a good sign. But I just want to see what kind of FPS we get in Tomb Raider, the reboot, on the low settings, and then see how far we can bump it up. Looks pretty much like PS2 graphics at the moment, like really exaggerated smoothing and like not much detail and stuff. I don't know how it comes across on camera, but run the benchmark. I mean, it still looks good. This monitor is 1400 by 900, so it's a nice middle ground resolution, so you should have quite high FPS, fingers crossed on this. Sure, it looks like a PlayStation, but yeah, if anyone like these screen screen recordings are mainly because I need a capture card, so hit me up if you got a free capture card you want to send over to me. But you'll have to do for now until I can afford to get one. Let's see what the results are in just a second. There we go. So we got max 62, minimum 58, average 60.1. So that's not too bad on a Core 2 Duo, so I'm happy with that. So as we can see here, we've got Metal Gear Solid 5, and these are our kind of settings that it's given us as default. And we're going to see if that makes for a playable frame rate. I've never actually played this game and I can't get Fraps to run on this computer either, so not with the same times they're running. Maybe I'll try that again in a bit, who knows. Right, let's see if it's playable. And it's perfectly playable. I don't know what actual FPS we're getting, but it would seem as though, at least aesthetically, I have no idea how to play this game with. There we go. Shoot some rounds at the sky. Okay, so we've got pretty playable experience on a Core 2 Duo with the 1 gig GPU, and yeah, so I'm kind of happy with that. And now to get on to pricing. So here we have the Lenovo ThinkPad X200 Intel Core 2 Duo, which it doesn't specify which exact processor it is, I don't think. It says 1.6 gigahertz, so mine's actually, oh there we go, 2.26. So it's the same model as mine, with 2 gigs of RAM, 160 gig hard drive, and Windows 7. And I reckon that's actually a pretty good bargain, and you're looking around this amount, maybe a little bit less, but I actually got mine for 60, because I bought it from a friend, and that was with 4 gigs of RAM and a 320 gig hard drive. So it's worth checking out. I don't know if you're based in America, or sometimes you use that in England, but like Craigslist or Gumtree, or you know, eBay itself as well. Just shop around for good deals, see what you can get. But I'd say 100 is probably reasonable for them, primarily because you can Libre boot them, and that's a bit of a selling point, because you can remove, I think it's the Intel management engine, and it means faster boot times, and you're not having all your packet data sniffed by Intel. So next we've got at least potentially, whatever, anyway. Next we've got the Express card, version 8.4, no, 8.0, sorry. I believe I have the version 8.4, but this should function more or less the same. But it's $29.99 anyway, in pounds. And it's likely that this is the most, basically this is the most common version available, but if you can get 8.4, go for 8.4, because I find it's quite reliable, and I think there's a few little updates. But what you're looking for is this thing. Where is it? Come back. This thing. You need this to work with the X200 and any other laptop that I've used. You can do it through PMCIe. Oh no, what is it? There's another port that's basically your Wi-Fi card port that you can do it with differently, which I showed in the previous video. But this is like the least modification requiring version. In regards to the graphics card, I actually found 2 of these graphics cards for £35 with £12 delivery, so like 47. So just to put in context how cheap these cards actually are, you shouldn't expect to pay. So there's one for 30. That's probably like a reasonable price. But let's see what else we've got here. Yeah, they're about 30. One thing I would say is the 750 Ti that I reviewed in the Ultimate Budget eGPU video doesn't work with this properly, because you can't boot from the card with a monitor plugged in, and the X200 here doesn't work on the internal screen, as I think I showed earlier in the video. When the eGPU is attached, you can't actually use the internal screen. So 750s and 700 series are out of the question. So, but this is sort of like a quite nicely matched card for this era. This is basically a retro gaming system. So yeah, again, there's the two there that I found earlier of this card. RAM's going to be quite expensive, but if you want 8 gigs, I mean, you can probably get by on 4 gigs of RAM depending on what games you're playing. If you want to play up to like sort of 2015 games-ish, is not a bad target for the highest end. You're going to need that 8 gigs of RAM, but anything before, you could probably stick with 4 gigs. And if you do that, get two 2 gig cards, because then you've got dual channels, so you get more bandwidth. What else? The SSD, this is pretty much what I bought. In fact, this is the exact one I bought here for £19. I didn't get it from this seller, but I spent, I think, about 17 on mine. But you can get the 128 gig for 20, 180 for 30, and 256, where is that? For 30. So, by all means, splash out. These are just they're quite a cheap company. I've had no problem with the SSD. It's not the fastest in the world, but it provides SSD speeds and perfectly functional. And the last thing, I just sort of got a generic power supply. This is somewhere where you don't really want to cheap out, but if you say you're running the 560 Ti like I am, in fact, let me just show you down here. You've got the two 6-pin connectors. So as you can see here, I've just got two Molex adapters, two 6-pin, and then the 6-pin off the power supply. So either way, you've got to make sure that the graphics card you're using has, the power supply you're using has the appropriate pin out or pins for your GPU. And I think that's all about I really need to give an example of. I'll probably do a summary at the end of it, but we're looking at around the mark of about £220–230 all in for an eGPU setup. So that's not actually that bad, and I paid quite a bit less for mine. I only paid £60 for the actual laptop. I had a dock with mine. In fact, let's Google that quickly. Sorry, eBay that. Ultrabase 2. Hopefully that'll come up with what we're after. No, we don't want trainers. We want. There we go. So we want the Ultrabase 2. So it's not this one, not this one. Where is it? They are available anyway. Let's try Amazon as well while I'm here. Amazon, and then Ultrabase 2. Oh, damn it, I did it again. No, just to speed it up, Lenovo Ultrabase 2. There we go, so there's one there for £30, but that's not the right one either. You'll have to search through for that, because it didn't actually take me that long to find mine. I think I got it for about £15, but if you want to put the hard drive in the dock underneath, then you're going to need the Ultrabase. Apparently, according to this, they're quite rare, so good luck with that, but that's what I'm using myself. Okay, so we looked at pricing, and now the next thing I wanted to show you involves, so basically Windows 7 on a hard drive was running really slow and badly optimized, and I was having quite a lot of issues. Could be fixed by reflashing the entire operating system, but with Windows 7 these days, and the version I've got of Windows 7 Pro, that's like a 2-day proposition really, because that involves a lot of faffing around. I could potentially clone from the Ultrabase to the SSD in there, or vice versa, to get Windows 7 on it, but I quite like having Windows 10 and Windows 7. So to add a third operating system into the mix, I'm actually going to use Linux Mint Mate, or Mate, actually I think is how it's supposed to be pronounced, but Linux Mint Mate. And a bit of novel thing here, I discovered that you can boot the X200, it sees it as a USB device, from the SD card reader. So it's just going to put that just in the front there, making sure it doesn't lock. And then basically what you need to do, if you can bring the camera up here please, you turn the device on and then spam the ThinkPad, Think Vantage button, which is the little blue button at the top. There we go, and then you press F1 to go into the BIOS. one. Then you go down to Startup, Boot, and all you want to do is using either F5 or F6, the function keys, to move it up and down. Make sure that the USB hard drive is above this is my SSD and that's my hard drive, so it's above there. And then you just press F10 to save configuration, exit now. Third million times the charm. I'm going to try and boot Linux from the SD card. Up there. It's going through, it's going through, it's going through auto adjustment. Is this Linux? Yes! Picking the game. So auto boot, yeah, we'll just skip that. Start Linux Mint. So we're going to start it. As you can see, I'm using Mate 64-bit or Mate 64-bit. Just to give an example. But as you will be astutely aware, this down here is the eGPU running up to this monitor here. And it appears that the eGPU is compatible with Linux Mint as well automatically. It's a basic display driver. And I'm pretty sure it just works with the NVIDIA drivers version 390.14 or somewhere around that time. Just wait for Linux to boot in. It will be a bit slower because it's on an SD card, but it is quite handy being able to have 3 operating systems, 2 of which are temporary devices. There we go, so we're into our nice, and then you can install from there. There's access to computers, a Windows 7 drive. So there we go, there's our SSD, there's a hard drive, there's the flash card or the SD card that we're running it off. And yeah, just the reason for this is that it uses a lot, Linux Mint uses a lot less resources and allows you to use your mobile broadband, which Windows 10 doesn't actually work with. So if you want a modern operating system that can run the mobile broadband service, and Windows 10 obviously doesn't have that available, you can simply boot from an SD card, just down here, in there, which then makes it removable, so you can try out different distributions, and then if you decide you want to use that, you can do a more hard drive based dual boot. You can also have it on the secondary hard drive in the Ultrabase, but that would be a bit more complicated. Yeah, so that kind of gives an example of how to get all the features of the laptop working with a modern desktop environment. We sort of covered the downsides in the failed attempt of Windows 10, because Windows 10 is quite resource heavy for CPU. It's only 2.26 gigahertz. Windows 7 is very soon to be deprecated, as in like 6 months, so I tend to avoid using it, although obviously I'm the sort of guy that uses Windows XP still on certain machines, so I'm probably having Windows 7 on this for quite a while. But I just sort of give you that example of how else you can do it. So to summarise the video, is this worthwhile doing? Probably not, unless you've already got the ThinkPad and then the X200, and then I would probably recommend it, just because, like, if you've got an old graphics card, or you can get a cheap graphics card and the dock for like 60 quid and you've already got the ThinkPad, definitely do it, because you can rejuvenate it, bring some more life to it, add games. You can use Linux, you can use Windows 10, you can use Windows 7. So for £60, if you've already got the device, and then about $220 in total for the full setup I've got here, not including the mouse. My mouse you'll have to provide on top of that, for say like £2 from a charity shop. And yeah, if I was going to like offer improvements on it for this particular ThinkPad, I think I might even do a follow-up video, which is a teardown and CPU and GPU thermal repasting, because it was already running a bit hot, and now with Windows 10 it's really maxing out a little bit heat-wise. The SSD's brought that down a little bit again, but the 8 gigs of RAM seems to be a huge contributing factor to sort of the extra heat. Although, I mean, down here there's barely any air being pumped out by the CPU fan. There's just like heat and in the general vicinity and not much cold air, so I think it just needs a bit of maintenance, which I'm probably going to do a teardown video of. So that's basically been the X200 ultra budget eGPU setup. Cheers.